For anyone who's interested, this is a guide on how to win the South African War before Richard Nixon resigns in the New Order on Hearts of Iron 4. You don't get much for doing this. If you do it while Nixon's still in office, you'll get an event called Now What, which I've actually got on the right side of the screen. Of course, I blurred it out in case someone wants to save it for when they finish the challenge. Overall, this video is really just a guide on how to min-max the South African War. This is a pretty tough challenge, but when you get to how many hours I have on this dang mod, it's pretty much what keeps you going. Now, like I said, it's tough. In fact, in this attempt, I literally got the event about Nixon's resignation before I'd even finished the war. I had 4 days to spare. Enough yapping, and let's get into the guide. The first part of a healthy South African war is before the war even starts. The most important part for your success is probably your division template. This is not a meta template. I don't know the best possible division for TNO, but this template literally demolishes everything the AI has ever tried to throw at me. So, I think it works. Some people tell you to use elite infantry instead of APCs, but that's going to really cost you speed, which is the most important stat for the first part of the war. So here's the template. Go ahead, copy and paste it. So, now the war is actually started. Let me get these out of the way. There's 2 things you have to do, don't forget. The first of these is you have to increase your military spending. Otherwise, this challenge is going to be twice as hard as it should be. Then you're going to send your volunteers, and make sure you have air volunteers on. I'm going to create 1 fighter air wing. You're going to need to send 1 fighter and 1 CAS. Sometimes it gets bugged and only lets you send 1 of these, but you need to send both of them. Just wait a few days and usually it'll fix itself. Once your volunteers have arrived in Africa, do the motorization thing so they get supply. Send them to this specific province and make sure they're in strat redeploy. So once your divisions arrive, you have to wait for them to reorg. Let's wait for that. So with this war, you're going to be following the railroads and the supply most of the time. You need to follow it to Bloemfontein and make sure you're using the railroad. Now we're just going to wait till they get there. So when you arrive at Bloemfontein, you've got to make a ring around the city with occupation. You always get an event for each time you take some of these cities, and you get a bad event when you lose it. So this just makes it easier for you. One thing with this war is that in the first part you have to take some encirclements. Depending on your skill level, you might just be able to go ahead without them, but these take time, but they make the war easier. So it's kind of like a trade-off. Nixon actually resigns around June 14th, so you kind of keep an eye on the date. You'll get a few events sometimes that warn you about how time's running out. So there's 2 focuses that really matter in this crisis focus tree you get. So you can see me taking Security Resolution 14. You're going to want to rush that focus. That's going to let you send 1 more volunteer to Africa. It's really important. Hopefully at this point in the war your air volunteer thing's fixed. You can see me sending my CAS to South Africa. But yeah, it's usually a good idea to do encirclements. Just don't do too many because it costs time. There we go. There's Security Resolution 14. I'm going to send that extra division. That's going to be really important for the next part. We're actually going to try to cap the Boers because that's going to remove about 40 divisions from the front line. It's really easy now with 3 divisions. You could do it with 2, but it just makes it so much easier. Here, let me speed up the footage so you don't have to sit through all this. Why don't you guys tell me in the comments if you can even hear my voice? I'm not sure I'm loud enough. So you can see the 3rd division just arrived. Send all of your divisions straight to the front for the final push. Okay, so you can see I've got the divisions ready. We're going to follow the railroad to Johannesburg and Pretoria. As long as you hold those two cities in either Nelspruit or Petersburg, the Boers should capitulate. I'm going to send one division to Nelspruit, one to Petersburg, and the third's going to stay in Johannesburg and Pretoria. They're going to defend. It's very important because the AI doesn't defend those cities. You have to do it yourself. Whichever of the two reaches Nelspruit and Petersburg will cap the Boers. As you can see, we took 3 of the 4 cities and they capitulated. Something you need to do first is make sure that there isn't a pocket in the southeast. Unfortunately, the AI cannot deal with a small pocket like this. Make sure you send one division on this very specific route following the railroad. It's going to go through Bullerstadt and all the way up to Dar es Salaam. When we get up in Tanzania, you have to stop following the railroad and go directly through Dodoma, Iringa, Mwanza, and Kisumu. This is to save time. So now you have to finish the pockets in the southeast, and we're going to be sending those 2 divisions north to Salisbury and all the other cities that are close by. With these cities and the other division we just sent a minute ago, East Africa will capitulate in about a month or 2. Remember, Nixon resigns in June. It might be difficult to fight your way to Salisbury. The AI for some reason never defends it, so you have to occupy a ring around the city so that you can protect it. If you have to, leave one division in the city while you take other cities that are close by. Alright, I just finished Proclaim a State of Emergency. You need to send 3 more divisions to South Africa now. Those divisions just arrived. Send them to this specific province with the strat redeploy. Wait for them to reorg, and then you have to follow the railroad to Windhoek and the port. You're going to see in a minute I'm going to get encircled, but with the division template I'm using, it's going to be okay. When you get encircled, usually you can break yourself out. You saw me bring the Cass over earlier. That was half the reason I was able to break out. If it gets really bad, you might have to send a division over from another part of the front. Now that I've taken Windhoek and the port, we can snake to capitulate Southwest Africa. Follow this route. We're snaking up to the port and then following the railroad north. You probably want to keep an eye on this front because the AI likes to get you encircled and lose the cities. Sometimes it gets really annoying, so pay attention. As you can see, I'm taking the opportunity to get a few quick encirclements. Like I said earlier, it makes the war easier, but it takes time. If the encirclement starts taking too much time, sometimes you just have to abort it. So sometimes Southwest Africa or East Africa might take too long to surrender. That just means you're going to need to start snaking Central Africa earlier. That's actually what I'm going to start doing. You can see me strat redeploying 1 division to the Central African border right now. There goes Southwest Africa, I got lucky. So to deal with Central Africa, you need to strat redeploy your divisions to the west and send 1 straight to Libreville and 1 to the other supply hub. You need to take Libreville as soon as possible because at this point the German Civil War usually ends, and AI Germany might send some units over. The German units aren't impossible to beat, but they are very difficult because in Libreville that's a jungle and river tile. So you can see I'm recommissioning the National Guard Division. The 3rd division that you haven't sent to Libreville or the supply hub, convert it to the National Guard template and send it towards the 2 cities that are deeper in the jungle. As you can see, I got encircled a bit in Zambia, but East Africa is on the brink of capitulating. At this point in the war, do not go for encirclements. Nixon will resign in June, and there is not enough time to do anything but snake. If anyone wants a guide on how to do all the proxy wars, I'd be happy to make one. So you just saw East Africa capitulated. I'm going to send at least 1 of these divisions to attack Central Africa from the east. Of course, this is what I meant earlier with how the AI can't deal with pockets. It's too late in the war to actually deal with these divisions, so I'm just going to hold them off until we win. Well, there's the Nixon resignation event. Nixon doesn't actually resign until you press the button on the event. So I'm just going to press the arrow and hide it until I capitulate Central Africa, because I'm only 3 days away until my division takes that 1 city. You can hold an event for up to 12 days. There you go. they capitulated. And there's the event. So, good luck to you all if you try this challenge. And if you're someone I know watching this video, hello.